What's good? What's good? How y'all doing today? Man, I know it's been a little minute since your boy posted a video. So, before I get into what today's topic is about, I want you guys to do like the intro of the video. Go ahead and click that subscribe button one time. I got a lot of new content coming your way, and it's just the beginning. So, stop what you're doing right now, take a moment, hit that subscribe down below, and then come on back. Let's go.
Everything I ever wanted. Yeah. I got everything I wanted. Everything I wanted. Everything I ever wanted. I got everything I wanted. And
Alright, what's good everybody? So today I want to chop it up with y'all about my top 5 favorite African American sitcoms. Yes, I strictly narrowed it to African American only. But don't worry, just in case you're not African American, don't fret. That's alright. Okay, I will do a top 5 for my favorite non-African American sitcoms. Alright. Because I do have some favorites that weren't African American as well. And the only reason why I'm separating it is because, as you know, there are black sitcoms and there are white sitcoms. I was a fan of a lot of TV shows. As a kid, never really paid attention to that, but as you got older, you kind of related more. So when I was like teenage to like young adult status, that's kind of when I started relating to the black sitcoms a little bit more than the white ones. But I still like the white ones. But in this particular video, we're just going to talk about my favorite top 5 African American sitcom shows on today. Alright, so y'all ready? Here we go. So before I even really get into this, let me just kind of briefly explain. I was a TV head, much like you guys. Now nowadays, to my younger viewers, a lot of times YouTube is kind of today's form of TV, which is cool. So hopefully when you watching this, you can look at these sitcoms, because what I've learned from research is that most millennials of today, they only know Fresh Prince and Martin. And a lot of times they know that just because those are iconic, we get it. And so hopefully when I list these sitcoms, y'all will, you can find them on YouTube. I've looked up clips, I've even found full episodes. Just in case that wasn't supposed to be toned. Sorry y'all. I found full episodes to some of these sitcoms that I list. And you can also find some of these on like Hulu, Netflix, and all that good stuff. So to my millennial viewers, yes, you can find this stuff, alright? Okay, so now here we go. Top 5 African American sitcoms. When I was coming up, some of these sitcoms were actually still live, and some of these sitcoms were pretty much reruns at this point. But they were dope. I loved them as a kid. And when I got older, as a teenager, I started watching them differently because I was a teen going through my teenage phase. And then of course, as a young adult, that's when these shows really started making more mental sense on the things that they covered. But I owe these to a lot of who I am today. They kind of raised me in a way. It was really weird. It was like the family I never had was always in that sitcom. And so it was kind of like, yo, I want that someday when I have my family. I want to be able to be like that. Again, for my millennials, when I make this list, if you don't know any of these shows, look them up. Trust me, you will like them. And to those who do know about these shows, hopefully it takes you down memory lane and you go watch some episodes later. You know what I'm saying? Coming in at number 5. Here we go. Number 5, Malcolm and Eddie.
It's an eclectic funny bone. They just won't leave you alone while you're sitting inside your home.
Yes, Malcolm and Eddie. That was my favorite, one of my favorite African American sitcoms. What it had to be about, basically you had It was, you know, as you guys know, Eddie Griffin, one of my favorite comedians, Malcolm Jamal Warner, who was also in a classic sitcom by the name of The Cosby Show. Y'all might have heard it. He played Theo Huxtable. Malcolm and Eddie was a dope show because I feel like it's a real underrated sitcom. I think it only went about 4 to 5 seasons, but it was such a funny show. I mean, Eddie Griffin had the punchline comedy galore because he's just a natural fool. And Malcolm Jamal Warner, man, as Malcolm, I mean, he literally just, he took the word cheap and he escalated it to a whole new level. I mean, he played the role of a cheap person to the fullest, y'all. So y'all need to check out Malcolm and Eddie. They had some real dope, memorable episodes. More importantly, what I loved about it was the overall base of the show was about black entrepreneurship. Here's two guys that were, you know, common guys. Malcolm was in media. He was really wanting to be like a sportscaster / broadcaster. You know, he wanted to do radio, and he was just working a regular radio job. You had Eddie, who was a handyman, so he was working on tow trucks. Next thing you know, I believe he had a tow service is what it was. And so next thing you know, their apartment where they were renting, where they were, you know, living at, also had a restaurant, a bar down below it. So the bar owner, her name was Kelly. The bar owner basically was, you know, it was cool. So initially what happened was these boys, they hit the lotto one day. They hit the lottery, and when they hit the lottery, basically it got to a point where they were like in that moment where anybody who wins the lottery is freaking out like, yo, we rich, oh man. And so what was dope about these two guys is Eddie had the personality of, I'm the wild one that basically loves to have fun, do whatever, I'm chill, I'm laid back, I'm spending money when I get it at all costs because I want to live life and love life because I didn't have money when I was young. Malcolm also didn't have much money with his family when he was young, but he was like, nah, I'm gonna be frugal with my money. I'm gonna spend it real lightly because I wanna make sure I got this money to last me for years, you know what I'm saying? So, basically you had two guys who were completely opposite but yet still had a common bond, and they had a brothership, they had a brotherhood amongst each other like no other. Straight brotherhood. I mean, they were like this, you know? And of course they butted heads, you know, but they were always at the end of the day the best of friends. So check this out. They win the lotto. The landlord at the time who had the restaurant below, she decided that she was gonna sell the restaurant, go into retirement with her husband, and they were gonna get together and basically, you know, they decided, hey, if we got this money, that we split it right down the middle because they both won. So because they split the money down the middle, they said, you know what, we should do something with this money. We need to invest it. And so they decided that they were gonna be entrepreneurs. And so the crazy part about that, y'all, was at first, Eddie was like, yo, I wanna be your partner, and Malcolm was kinda against it. But nonetheless, after things happened, these two men became young black entrepreneurs. They had their own bar / tow business. And then in the middle of the season, they went through some controversy. Eddie got a job in Pittsburgh. Malcolm ended up getting a job, or he ended up kind of selling his half of the bar to be with this woman who he thought wanted him, and all along she was stringing him along. So they get back together, Malcolm and Eddie that is, they get back together, and basically they end up transforming what used to be a sports bar / tow truck shop, and they turned it into like a big gigantic jazz club. So, I mean, it was awesome, real talk. So, y'all really need to watch Malcolm and Eddie. I'm talking about this show covered so much about life. Number 4 goes to Mo to the E to the Moesha. Yes, Moesha. So millennials, if you don't know about Moesha, you really should check it out. Now what's so funny is, looking back at it now, it seems a little bit dated because the show came out in like the late 90s to the early 2000s. But still, it's such a classic show, even in 2019. Watch Moesha, y'all. Moesha featured Brandy. Okay, millennials, if you don't know who Brandy is, I'm pretty sure you need to go and like take a listen to her resume, because homegirl got hits, okay? And you might know her brother Ray J, because I'm sure you've seen him on like Love and Hip Hop and all that good stuff. So if you don't know who Brandy is, you know who Ray J is, and Ray J is also in this show. So check out Moesha. Here's why Moesha made number 4 for me. Again, yet another show that I feel like is very underrated when it comes to sitcom shows, because this show was like the best when it comes to like middle class African American families. When we talk about fathers, right? Everybody knows Uncle Phil and Carl Winslow and so many different ones, but I feel like Frank Mitchell gets slept on as how good of an African American father he really was. But man, this show it had everything. It has comedy, it's got drama, it's got entertainment, because you see memorable rappers from that time, such as Master P. Master P was a guest on the show before. You had all tons of people. It was all kind of people who were like guest stars on the show before. You had Genuine on the show once. I think it was Montel Jordan. You had Montel Jordan. You had 112. And like I said, to my millennials, these were groups that were hot at the time. So this is like late 90s. So I'm pretty sure you millennials have heard 90s R&B music. So if you know about 112 and you know about Silk the Shaka and Master P and all of them, then you'll see at their time when they were younger that they were in this show. But man, this show covered so much, from Frank, who we thought was the perfect father for most of that show, and then like kind of midway through the season, we find out that he had a secret affair because his wife had like left him for a moment. He had a secret affair, had a son. And then what he did was he took his son, and he still raised his son, but he pretended to be his uncle instead of his father. And he gave his son to his sister, Sandy. And basically she raised him as her son, when in actuality that was Frank's son. And he had Dorian believing all this time that basically he was his uncle when he was really his father. It was a shocking moment. That episode alone was one of the most jaw-dropping episodes, because Frank is like exposed unintentionally, to where when the truth got kind of let out, he had to basically confess it up. And man, it took so much for him to bear that and have to deal with not only Moesha basically rebelling against him, but then he had to deal with Dorian, who was already kind of troublesome before finding that out, and so when he finds it out, he became even more troublesome. So it was crazy, man. But Dorian, for those again, my millennials, Dorian is played by Ray J. So if you know who Ray J is, he plays Dorian, who was Moesha's cousin, who we found out later is actually her brother, which is funny because they're brother and sister in real life. But Moesha, man, I'm telling you, Moesha was number 4 for me. I feel like it's an underrated sitcom, and some might feel that way because some probably do and don't like Brandy. I've always, over the years, heard where some people love her, some people hate her, so I don't know. But Moesha was definitely top 5 for me. It was top 5 for me, and I think y'all should check out Moesha. Look up some clips on YouTube. Look on Hulu, look on Netflix, see if you can find it, all that good stuff, all right? Number 3 on my top 5 black sitcoms. We're gonna come a little bit more recent. Okay, so I'm gonna go with The Game. Now, I'm pretty sure even my millennials know about this show, because this show came out right around like 2005, 2006-ish, and it ended like it had 2 endings, because it got canceled after 3 seasons, and then fans loved the show so much, especially when they showed the repeats on BET. Fans loved the show so much that they petitioned on social media to bring it back. And it came back for another, I believe it was like another 4 or 5 seasons. And unfortunately, it came to an abrupt end because it wasn't quite the same. Like, a lot of the fans of the first 3 seasons kind of got into it first for like the 4th and the 5th season. But after that, they kind of just started not liking the writing. So, as many people say, BET messes up things. Thanks, BET. But at least you guys brought it back. That's all that matters. You know, they brought the show back, and I saw where they were going with the stories. But that's beside the point. Here's what I wanted to say. The Game, to me, is in my top 5 because unlike most sitcom shows, this approached it in a different way. This was a show about pretty much the pro athlete. More specifically, the football pro athlete. And so what it was is it was basically just covering the fact that it had 3 different stories to tell you guys. You had a rookie who just got drafted to the NFL, or the pros, and he's drafted to the pros. He has a girlfriend that he had with him from college. She's basically going to medical school. She comes out to San Diego with him, and they live together. And so, you know, they're kind of just this green, happy-go-lucky couple. And, you know, you couldn't help but love them at first. Then, you know, we go into the locker room, and you get to meet Malik, who's the star quarterback, who's kind of full of himself and basically just a ladies' man and all of that jazz. But he's basically harassing the rookie, you know, like most sports players do. And it's funny because in real life sports, the Game kind of covered what you really see in the pros. I mean, a lot of times when a rookie comes to the league, you know, they get hazed. You know, they kind of have to do a little something like carry the bags of the pros and just little stuff like that. Nothing too serious. So this show kind of gave us a visual to those who always wondered, man, what is it like when the game is behind the scenes? You know, like, what is it like in the locker room, or what is it like that if you don't play football or basketball yourself? So the Game kind of gave a nice comical yet somewhat realistic view of what it's like behind the scenes in the football locker room and even off the field, you know, because sometimes we hear about these football players who get in trouble, and the Game had moments like that. It was literally like watching real life sports in the form of a sitcom show. So it was pretty dope. But another character, you had Jason, who was the star athlete, the star wide receiver. Derwin Davis, like I said, who I covered in the first portion of that as, you know, the guy who was the rookie. Derwin Davis was a receiver who was up and coming, but he was a 3rd string. So that means he really didn't see no playing time. Jason Pitts is the guy who was the wide receiver, who was pretty much the star, but he was also kind of like in his veteranship, so he was kind of like somewhat in the middle stages of his career where he was still good, but as Derwin was kind of on the rise, Jason was kind of starting to decline, you know, so it was pretty dope to see how that worked. Okay, so then you had Malik, who, as I said, was the star quarterback. But then you also had his mom, who was his manager, and she raised him as a single mom. So he had his relationship with her where he had to try to break away from her. You had Jason, who was married, and, you know, he was going through trials and tribulations with his wife, more so because Jason was pretty much a cheapskate. You had another show with a cheapskate character. He was a cheapskate, so he only allowed his wife to buy knockoff stuff and all that, and he's making millions of dollars but being super cheap with his money because he wants it to last. You're a you're a biracial man with a white woman as a wife, and you're in the league, you're in the pros, you're making millions of dollars from your stardom, but you're very, very frugal with your money. And so Kelly was fine with that. But there were times just over the seasons where, you know, sometimes it just wasn't okay. And so, yeah, it was dope to see those trials and tribulations as well. The Game is that show you want to watch. The Game is a very, very dope show. I recommend watching probably just the first 3 to 4 seasons of it, because after like the 4th season, like I said, once BET kind of brought it back, that first season when BET brought it back was kind of good, but it just didn't feel the same because the production was different, the characters were the same, but it just gave you a different vibe than the first 3 seasons did. So, albeit the 4th season was good, it just took a while to adjust to that. And then you watch the 5th and the 6th, and it's like, cool, you know, but once they change characters and Melanie and Derwin are no longer a part of the show, it kind of was hard to watch after that. But I still watched it because, you know, Lauren London, what man doesn't love Lauren London, you know? So I don't know, watching Lauren London kind of made it watchable those last couple of seasons. On top of the fact that they still had Jason and Malik and Tasha Mack, but you know, say what you will. But check out The Game, definitely number 3 on my list. Number two on my list. Okay, this is where we get good. Number 2 on my list is A Different World.
I know my parents loved me, stand behind me come what may. I know now that I'm ready, yeah, for I finally heard them say, it's a different world, ooh, than where you come from. The city is now, yeah, here's our chance to make it. And if we focus on our goal, you can decide, we can take care. Hey, just remember that you and told. It's a different world. It's a different world. It's a different world. It's a different world than where you come from. Ooh, than where you come from.
Shout out to my college kids out there if you watch it. A Different World, man. What can we say? I mean, not only is the intro to that song super iconic, rest in peace to the late great Aretha Franklin for basically killing that theme. And A Different World was such a dope show. I'm pretty sure my millennials might know about it in a sense because I'm sure they've heard about it, but if they haven't actually watched it, once again, millennials, you need to watch A Different World. Last time I checked, it was on Netflix, so just go on Netflix and just binge watch it, man. If not, I'm pretty sure Hulu would have it, or like I said, YouTube it, you know? Anything and everything, trust me, you can find just about anywhere, and that's the beauty of streaming. Now, A Different World was dope because when you're in college, and even before you go to college, like when you're watching black people in HBCUs and you're seeing what it's like, and then you experience college for yourself and you see like, wow, it really is a different world. Like the title alone kind of explains how dope the show is because it relates to actual college. When you leave high school and you go to college, it's a different world. Everything is so different from what high school was. You know, like when you're in college, it's like, man, I'm on my own. I'm in a dorm room with no rules except for, you know, campus rules. But I'm in a dorm where I basically am in control of, do I want to go to class today? Do I need to study? Like, you got your own responsibilities and your own things that you have to do. You got to make your own money and basically get your own food and, you know, get around in your car and keep gas in it. You know, just all kind of things. And it's just a totally different world. And it's one thing to hear it, but when you watch this show and then you actually either currently attend college or you are getting ready to go to college and you experience it, that show just becomes that much more iconic. So I had to make this one number 2. I'd say this show is kind of underrated, but kind of not. Like it's a little bit of hand in hand. But really dope characters in this one. Freddie and just so many people, so many. And then of course Whitley. Everybody knows Whitley because Whitley started off as the mean snob, and then she transitions, and next thing you know, her and Dwayne Wayne get with each other. Denise, who was a character in the first couple of seasons, she drops out, so we don't see her anymore because then she goes back to the Cosby Show, to where they focused on basically Dwayne Wayne, Whitley, Freddie, and just everybody that pretty much was that. Sinbad was in this, just so many dope people. But like I said, HBCU life, really fun. How could you not love A Different World? I mean, so many valuable life lessons come out of that, including make sure you're studying when you're in school, because ultimately you want to graduate. Because the best part about it was that at the end, once Whitley and Dwayne Wayne graduated, you saw their life after college and like their struggles. And then I think at that time they had got married as well. But then you also saw that they came back to their alumni. They came back as alumni and they decided to teach at their prospective school that they graduated from. So again, it just shows like there was so much that was dope about A Different World. So y'all need to check that out. Number one, my number one favorite sitcom TV show. Y'all like my imaginary drum roll? I might put some sound effects in that later. I don't know. Alright, so here we go. Number one on the list of my top 5 African American sitcoms goes to Family Matters.
It's a rare condition this day and age to read any good news on the newspaper page. And love and tradition of the grand design, some people say, is even harder to find. Well, then there must be some magic clue inside these gentle walls. 'Cause all I see is a tower of dreams, real love bursting out of every scene. As days go by, it's the bigger love of the family.
Yes, Family Matters. Personally, this show is the greatest of all time out of African American sitcoms. Steve Urkel, yes, Steve Urkel. That guy, you know, little nerdy dude with the glasses. Millennials, I'm pretty sure you've heard of Steve Urkel. And I'm pretty sure you might have even cosplayed as him a few times if you've done like a tacky day at school or whatever. Like, Steve Urkel was iconic in so many ways. But not even just Steve Urkel. I'm talking about the entire family. When we talk about top dads, again, Carl Winslow, okay, is right there with Uncle Phil. Like, Uncle Phil and Carl Winslow. Now, millennials, sometimes y'all might try to mistake the two because, ironically, both men were very round. They were, you know, kind of chubby. They had basically hardly any hair up top. And they both threw temper tantrums whenever they got really angry. Like, I'm talking Hulk type angry, you know. So I can see why you would kind of confuse the two. But remember, James Avery, aka Uncle Phil, is light-skinned, kinda, and Carl is about my complexion. So, you know, don't confuse them that much. And I think James Avery is a bit taller as well. Uncle Phil was a little taller. Nonetheless, Family Matters was a dope show, and here's why I consider it the greatest of all time amongst African American sitcoms. And so, like I said, Family Matters, albeit probably wasn't the first African American sitcom show, to me, at least from what I can tell, it seemed like it was the first mainstream level African American show. Like the first legit African American show that went and had so much success on a mainstream level. Because some African American sitcoms, we may know about them, but it may not, but like those of other cultures may not know about the show like we do. So again, with the Jeffersons, some white folks may know about the show, some don't. Shows like Amen and Good Times and all of those, again, some people outside of the black culture might not know about those shows. But see, when you talk about Family Matters, it's right up there with the Fresh Prince and pretty much all of those other shows, like Martin, the Fresh Prince, and all those other shows that had like mainstream level success. But I feel like Family Matters had it first because technically speaking, that show is easily mistaken as a show of the 90s because it kind of has a 90s feel to it. But actually, that show was actually made in like the mid to late 80s. I believe it was the late 80s. So it was kind of like Kid and Play and House Party. It's kind of that transition between the 80s, the end of the 80s era, to the early 90s. So it was kind of like right there. But technically speaking, Family Matters did come out in the 80s. Therefore, to me, I feel like it had that success before Fresh Prince and before Martin and all of that good stuff. Now, so here's why, again, Family Matters is considered the greatest of all time amongst African sitcom shows, in my opinion. So this show basically covered everything. I mean, all types of issues. You saw bullying, you saw gang violence, you saw racism in different ways. You saw racism, there was an episode where it came to racism with cops, and then there was also racism in school. There was an episode where it was Black History Month, and Laura Winslow, the daughter of Carl Winslow, she basically like wanted to start an African American class for us to learn more about African American history. She also had a textbook she wanted to use that would cover it deeper than what the regular textbooks would. And so she made a petition, people were signing it, it was looking good. But then she comes to her locker with Steve Urkel, and she comes across this note. Steve's like, what's going on? What's the note? Reads the note, and it basically says, if you want Black history, go back to Africa. And you knew that came from like a white person at that point. So then she closes her locker, and across her locker is spray painted N-I, you know the rest. The N-word. And again, this is why, to me, I think off of that one episode alone, that's why Family Matters is like the all-time greatest sitcom show. To my knowledge, I don't recall any sitcom show that went so far. Like, they touched on racism, but they never went so far to actually show you and touch it to a point where you see the N-word displayed. The fact that Laura had the N-word written across her locker showcased to me that there's no show better than that. And this show covered gun violence and just all kind of different things over the years, different types of issues with family, like distant family versus immediate family. I mean, it was so many different issues. Millennials, if you don't know about Family Matters, I can tell you for a fact, it is available on Hulu. Go on Hulu and binge watch it, because I've been catching up on it. I haven't watched that show in so long. I recently found it on Hulu and was like, yo, I gotta watch this. So I've been watching it like crazy every chance I get. But yeah, man, Family Matters, #1 greatest of all time sitcom. So just quick little rundown of my top 5 again, just in case you guys didn't catch that. And then I'm gonna throw some honorable mentions in there as well. So a quick review, real quick, of my top 5 favorite African American sitcoms. Here we go. Number 5, you had Malcolm and Eddie. Number 4, you had Moesha. Number 3, you had The Game. Number 2, you had A Different World. And number 1 is Family Matters. Now, for my honorable mentions, I have Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I have One on One. I have Martin, and I have That's So Raven. So, those are my honorable mentions. Guys and girls, if you're seeing this and watching this, make sure you comment down below and, leave your thoughts, leave your opinions. Y'all let me know what your favorite TV sitcom shows were growing up or currently or whatever, you know what I'm saying? And like I said, to my non-African Americans who watch this, Don't you worry, because I also have a top 5 non-African American sitcom series that I will post up as well. So, thank you guys for your time. Hope you had fun and enjoyed this, and I will see y'all next time. Hi-Lite life. We out.
Only make a wish, this relationship in the name. Jesus, he truly reigns. Keep working on me, dear Lord. I'm feeling to see the gains. Changing